And I also love 242 because 242 and Chris played a huge part in my life. And I wouldn't be where I am today if it wasn't for this ministry. And so this place holds a very dear part of my heart. And so I'm glad to be here and super excited to kind of finish up this series that we've been in called You Have Heard It Said. And so, like I said, tonight we're going to finish this up. We've been going over it for the last 4 weeks. This is week 5. And if you haven't been with us, I'm going to try and catch you up really, really quickly. And it probably actually won't be that quick. But for the past 4 weeks, we've been walking through Jesus' longest recorded sermon, which is the Sermon on the Mount. It spans Matthew 5 through chapter 7. And throughout this series, we've been walking through the importance of this Sermon on the Mount. And so the sermon is basically Jesus, his manifesto on life and his kingdom. And if you are a follower of Jesus, this is how you are to live. And more importantly, if you're here today and you're not a follower of Jesus, one, I'm glad you're here. But it gives you an insight into what Jesus is inviting us into. And so the series is called You've Heard It Said because throughout the entire Sermon on the Mount, Jesus, he begins to challenge the teaching and the thinking of that day. And just so we are all on the same page tonight, I normally speak in the mornings, and so I'm trying not to say this morning a lot. So tonight, so we're all on the same page, during the first century, there were rabbis and Pharisees and other religious leaders that taught the law of God. And they taught people how to live life and how to navigate certain situations and make decisions. And Jesus, over and over and over again in this Sermon on the Mount, he would start certain portions of his sermon with, "You've heard it said." And so in other words, you've heard, okay? So you've heard money talked about this way. You've heard about relationships talked about this way. You've heard about adultery talked about this way. You've heard it said this way, but I'm going to tell you my way. Like, hey, like you've heard one way to live your life, but I'm going to tell you my way to live life. You've heard of one way to live life, but I'm going to tell you the best way to live life. Like, you know this. I know this. We all know this. That there is a world out there that is telling you one way to live. There are messages day in and day out that say, hey, this will lead you to fulfillment. If you do this one thing, it's going to change everything for you. This is what you really want. You want to dress like this. You want to look like this. You want to achieve this, right? This is worth giving your life to. This is the way you should live. This is what you should pursue. This is what you should say that is most important in your life. We all hear these types of messages every single day. And this is why I personally love working with college students or college age students, right? Because in this season of your life, you're starting to build the foundations of your life. You're trying to figure out what's next. But isn't it true, like, if you think all the way back, so for me it's a really long time ago, but if you think all the way back to like elementary, middle school, like you just already know, like, hey, this is what's next. You get to 5th grade and then there's like, oh my gosh, like 6th grade's coming, and then like middle school and all this kind of stuff, right? And so you already know, like, hey, this is what's next, but it's just like this thing that's out there just like looming out there, right? And then you finally get to middle school and like that's kind of terrifying, people are mean. Like, I get it. I work with middle schoolers. Middle schoolers are mean. But you get there and you're like, oh my gosh, this is, okay, I guess. But then you just know that, hey, like, I know what's next. What's next is high school, and I also work with high schoolers, and high schoolers can be mean too, and so then you're like freaking out about that, so you have what's next. And then for those of you that went to college, you're like, okay, like I'm going to college. I know what's next. But then you get to college and you're like, all right, this is okay, I still feel like I'm a kid, and then, but once you get to like senior year, do I have any seniors right now that's like, oh, we're about to graduate, right? And you're like, wait, I'm supposed to do what now? I'm supposed to be an adult, but I'm just a baby, right? I know that there is something that is always next, right? And so you're in this season of life where you're learning more about yourself and then like you ever have, you're learning about who you're going to be and what you're going to do. You have to decide what you want to do with probably like a major that, let's be honest, you're probably never going to use, but we are all trying to figure out what we're going to do. And then there's all of these you've heard it said messages for all of us, myself included. Like, you've heard it said, this is the way to fulfillment. You need to go get a good job, make a lot of money, because that equals fulfillment. That equals success. You've heard it said, this is how you should view money. You've heard it said, this is what's going to lead to purpose. And while all of us hear messages every day of this is how you should live your life, Jesus comes in and he's saying, I'm going to teach you the best way to live life. And so we've kind of unpacked what's going on, right? I said it wasn't going to be that quick, but we finally unpacked all that's going on right now, and we are going to literally go to the very end of this sermon, and we're going to look at the very end where Jesus gives us the most compelling reason, I think, as to why we should do everything the Sermon on the Mount says. Okay, so for some of you, even if you followed Jesus for quite some time, it's easy for us to kind of default to see the teachings of Jesus in certain ways. If you're like me, maybe when you think about the teachings of Jesus, or maybe when it comes to the Sermon on the Mount, if you're like me, it's kind of like this. And you're like, oh, that's backwards. But you're kind of like this, right? It's a contract, okay? It's a contract. And everything that we think about when it comes to the Sermon on the Mount or just anything that Jesus has to teach, it's like a contract. And it's like, well, I got to kind of hold up my end of the deal, If I kind of sign my life away and put it into this contract, and if I do all the things that Jesus is teaching me to do, then I'll be good. And so maybe that's the lens you are looking through all of this through. Maybe when it comes to like Jesus' authority over your life, it's just kind of like this contract. It's like, hey, like it's just a business deal. I'm gonna try my best to hold up my end of the deal, and hopefully Jesus holds up his end of the deal, right? And even through all of that, we still try and find loopholes to get out of it. And like, well, like, I don't know, can I do this? Is this too far, right? Like we try and get out of this contract, right? It's like maybe that's how we view this. Or maybe another lens you look through is just like, hey, it's just a big old book of rules, kind of like this right here, right? It's just, hey, there's just this old book. And like, do I really believe all of that? Like, it's just old, it's dusty, right? Like, it's not relevant today. And it's like, there's just a list of rules in here. And it's like, these are all things that Jesus wants me to do, but I don't know if it even applies to me anymore, Like, it's just Jesus trying to tell me what to do. And so maybe that's the lens you look through when it comes to the teachings of Jesus. Or maybe for some of you, when you think about the teaching of Jesus or the Sermon on the Mount, one way you look at it is you remember those really evil people at Six Flags, And you're like, wait, what? That is not what I thought he was going to say. Yeah, like the people that have like the measuring stick, and I want you to use your imagination because I can't find a measuring stick anywhere, but imagine this is a measuring stick, It kind of is, but it's a level, I know. But it's like a measuring stick, okay? Like I'll never forget. Growing up, when I was a kid, we had season passes. That's probably going to fall. We had a season pass to Six Flags. And so we would go all the time, and it was great. It was so cool. I mean, I was little, and if you've been to Six Flags recently, it's not that great anymore. But at the time, I was a little kid, and I thought this was the coolest thing ever, right? And I got to ride all the roller coasters and everything, but I was still little. And I couldn't wait until the moment that I could ride the real roller coasters, okay? Like the real ones. But not just any of them. I couldn't wait to ride the Texas Giant. This right here. And if you've ever been to the one in Arlington, you know what I'm talking about. Okay, at the time, it was the largest wooden roller coaster in the country. And if you've ever been to this one before, like you know what I'm talking about. And the thing is, like, if you've been recently, this thing's super sketchy. Super sketchy, And let's be honest, it probably was then too, and I don't really know what my parents were thinking, like letting me do this, but the time came. The moment was there, and I felt like I finally grew enough, and this was a trip I was going to get to go ride the Texas Giant. So we take off, and we drive up there, and on the way, we stop off at Walmart, and we go in, and we had one goal: find the tallest pair of shoes, sandals, whatever we can find that could somewhat fit me. That was the plan. So we go, and I'm not even kidding. I called my parents, and I asked, like, please look through all of our pictures, because I know we have one somewhere. I couldn't find it. But I got these sandals that were like almost 3 inches thick, right? And so I'm like, yes, this is going to happen. We're in our car in the parking lot. My dad does my hair, and he's like, kind of slicking it back, but like poofing it up. I gain another 2 inches there, and so I'm just like strutting in like on stilts, And so we go straight to the Texas Giant. I get in line, and I'm just sitting there like just stretching as tall as I could, right? I'm just sitting like, okay, I can do this, okay. And so the guy got up, he looked at me, and he was like, man, who is this weird kid, And so he brings his little, measuring stick. And I remember it was like, time just slowed down, and I'm like, okay, this is the moment. And he just goes like this, and I remember feeling it just brushed my hair, and I'm like, and I just remember everything like just went silent, and everything's in slow motion. I heard the guy like look down at me. He just goes, "You're good to go." Oh my gosh, I screamed, I took off running. I was so excited to get on this ride that if you've been on the Texas Giant recently, you know that ride is rough. And for a little kid, that was one of the worst experiences of my life. But I was so excited to get on the Texas Giant, and it was incredible, right? No, I actually hated it, but I was still pumped to do it. And so, bringing it back, right? So it's this measuring stick, right? And when it comes to the Sermon on the Mount, you feel like Jesus is the one holding up that measuring stick. He is the one saying, hey, like, you have to be this tall, right, to make it, And you're just thinking, I've just got to measure up. I just got to measure up. It's about looking good enough for Jesus, being good enough for Jesus. And so the whole law is like this measuring stick. And I'm not tall enough to ride. I'm trying to be tall enough to ride. I'm just trying to be good enough. I'm just trying to be tall enough. Maybe that's the lens you see the Sermon on the Mount. And that certainly isn't a compelling reason to apply it to your life. Or maybe for some of you, the way that you view the law is like the backpacks they put on these like evil demon-possessed kids, like this. Yeah, right? Like, it's just a leash, right? Also, I just realized this says badparenting.org. That's awesome. But maybe it's like that, right? You put it on this kid and like, they're just running around going nuts and they're like, oh, I'm free, right? And then you're just like, yoink, like, like maybe it's like that, like, be honest real quick. Who in here had a backpack leash? Like, who is on one? Okay. Okay, I see some more back there. I mean, the ones that didn't raise your hand, I feel like there's probably some of you that need to still be on a backpack leash. And you're like, actually, my life would be a lot better if I did have one of those, But maybe for some of you, that's how you see all of this. And that's the lens you use when it comes to looking at the teaching of Jesus or the Sermon on the Mount. Like, Jesus is trying to just hold me back. He's trying to restrict me. He doesn't, like, he wants to just control me and where I go and what I do and the people that I hang out with and all of these things, right? And so maybe that's how you view all of this. And man, if that's the case, that's not a very convincing or compelling reason to start applying some of this to your life. And so Jesus ends this sermon by giving us the best lens to see all of this through. And I think it's probably the most compelling reason of why we should apply all of this. And so I'm just going to skip ahead, and because I know we have some people in here that are like kind of tired, right? And so you're like, oh gosh, I'm ready to go home. And so for you, I'm just going to go ahead and give you the whole point of this message, and then you can like zone out, But it's this: Jesus isn't trying to rip you off. He's not. Jesus isn't trying to rip you off. Jesus wants to set you free. Like he's not trying to rip you off. He's not trying to hold you back. He's not trying to get you to measure up or to hold like your side of the contract. Like he's not trying to do all of this kind of stuff, right? He's not just trying to force a bunch of like old laws on you just because he feels like it. He's not trying to keep you from fun. He's not trying to keep you from life. He's not trying to rip you off. Like Jesus, listen to me, like Jesus wants to set you free. And so in the Sermon on the Mount that we've been talking about over the last month or so, it's his manifesto on how to live life, and not just how to live it, but how life is lived best. And that's different. It's his manifesto on how to have the healthiest relationships, how to live with the maximum amount of purpose, to live a life not mastered by money or things. And it's his manifesto on how you and I can experience life. I want you to hear this: experience life where worry and anxiety doesn't dominate our thinking. Man, can you imagine that? Like, that sounds pretty great. And like ultimately what he's trying to do, he's trying to tell us how we can experience a full life. A full life, not a perfect life. Like, hear me say that, not a perfect life, but a full life, a fulfilling life. Like, don't you want a life that when people look at you, they're like, man, like they have so much joy. They have so much peace. They have purpose. They make decisions every day with a purpose. They have relationships that are healthy. Like, what? Like they have this growing faith. Like, don't you want that kind of life? Don't you want a full life? And so y'all, like, wherever you are today on your faith journey, wherever you are, can we not agree that this is what we all want? Like even if we take all of this religious stuff off, all the church stuff off, like take everything off the table, and can we just get down to it and say, hey, we could all agree this is what we want. We want a full life. And it's these things that some of you are trying to figure out how to find in college. Like the things that you've run to, all the substances or relationships, like you're just trying to fill that void with something. And Jesus is saying, hey, like, listen to me. Listen, like, hey, listen. I've got what you're looking for. Like, I've got what you're looking for. All of these things, like you've been searching, you've been trying to like find your purpose in life and so many other things. And he said, hey, just look to me. I've got what you're looking for. Because here's what's true. Okay? And you may have heard this said before around here, right? It's like, if you have notes, go ahead and take this down real quick, right? Jesus makes life better, and he makes you better at life. Jesus makes life better, and he makes you better at life. And so, to sum it all up, in a nutshell, Jesus makes life better, but not perfect. Because better doesn't mean perfect. Better means better, right? Like that to have hope in some really hard situations, I don't know, that's better, right? To experience peace when you're in the midst of loss, that's better. To experience purpose, that's better. All of these things, it's just better, right? It's not saying, hey, it's easy, but it's better. And so I'm going to dig into the end of this sermon, okay? This is where Jesus really started to kind of land the plane, right? And he's like, all right, like I've said all of these things and I'm about to wrap it up, you know? And if you've been in certain church contexts, you know that this is the time that like some random dude just like sneaks up behind the pastor and like plugs in some stuff and just starts laying down this really sick pad, you know, in the back on the piano. And so like all this is going on and so Jesus is like, okay, like everything's good, you know, emotions, everybody's feeling all emotional, all the things, right? And he gets to the end and he taught all of the content of this sermon, right? He taught all of this stuff and he looks at everybody listening. So I just imagine like he's looking out to everybody and it's like, hey, like I unpacked a lot of stuff here. And he just stops for a second. He looks at everybody just looking back at him. And the very first thing he does, he gives an invitation. And in Matthew 7:13, he says, so after all that I've taught, after all the things that I've said, here's the invitation. Okay? Here's the invitation. He says, enter through the narrow gate. And when he says this, the narrow gate, that was the invitation to follow him. That was an invitation to say, hey, I want to follow you. I want to make you the master and the Lord of my life. I want you to be my teacher. I want to learn from you on how to live and navigate life. That was the invitation. And he continues on. He says, for wide is the gate. For wide is the gate, and broad is the road that leads to destruction, and many will enter through it. So he says this, and it's like, wow, like that could be a pretty hard thing to read sometimes, you know? I mean, he's saying, hey, enter through the narrow gate, for wide is the gate, and broad is the road that leads to destruction, and many will enter through it. And so he's saying, hey, listen, I want you to enter through the narrow gate. I do. But he also says, hey, a lot of people are just going to go with the flow. They're going to just do what everybody else does. They're going to go along with the culture. They're just going to do whatever everybody else is doing. They're going to pursue things that lead to destruction. And he said, hey, many people are going to choose that. And I want to be clear for a second, okay? When he says destruction, that's not like a physical destruction. He means like ruin, pain, regret. And so he's saying, hey, like I'm inviting you to this over here, but the invitation is also tied to a warning. And he's saying most people are going to put their hope in things. Most people are going to try to find joy and contentment in a relationship, in some kind of job, and all these other things. And he's saying, when you do these things, Jesus is saying it's going to lead to destruction. It's going to lead to pain. It's going to lead to regret. And he's saying, this isn't it's not a threat. Like Jesus isn't up here like just, I'm threatening you, like you better not, right? He's not saying that. He's just saying, hey, this is just the reality of life. You have choices to make. And I think we can all agree, like some more than others, but we have all lived life long enough to know that we have all made some of those decisions, and it has led us to some version of destruction, some version of regret, some version of pain, some version of ruin. And he says, hey, many are going to enter through it like just because it's just a popular way. It's just going to be the way that most people are going to go. In verse 14, he says, but small is the gate and narrow the road that leads to life, and only a few find it. And he's not saying like, hey, it's only like it's limited to like, oh, you have to be special to go through this gate. He's not saying that, because he's just saying it's just going to be the less popular way. And so here's Jesus. He looks at the crowd after he laid all of this out and what it looks like to make the right decisions and what life in his kingdom looks like. And he says, hey, both gates are available to you. Both ways are available to you. Which way are you going to go? I said it's not a threat. He's just saying, I'm just letting you know. One way leads to destruction, and the other leads to the life that you've always wanted. So he's laying it out there. And he's like, hey, I'm not threatening you. We're just being real right now. So which one are you going to choose? And so he closes his sermon with this, and we're going to jump down to verse 24 and 25. And he says, therefore, everyone who hears these words of mine and puts them into practice, whoever hears this sermon and actually does what it says is like a wise man who built his house on the rock. The rain came and the streams rose and the winds blew and beat against the house, yet it did not fall because it had its foundation on the rock. And so Jesus says, hey, if you want your life to resemble someone who's built their house on a rock, listen and apply. Listen and apply. Listen and apply. And so verse 26 through 27, he continues. He says, but everyone who hears these words of mine and does not put them into practice is like a foolish builder who built their house on sand. The rain came down and the streams rose and the winds blew and beat against that house, and it fell with a great crash. Yeah, like Jesus said, like, I'm not gonna like punish you, or like I'm not gonna be the one that blows your house down. like when life hits you, when you make some bad choices, he's not saying, hey, I'm gonna be the one blowing this house down. I'm gonna be the one to do that. He's not saying that. He's saying I don't have to, because it's going to take care of itself. It's just gonna happen. Because you've built your house. You've built your relationship. You built your life. You've built your mindset. You did this, not me. You did this. You decided to build all of this and to have a foundation that will not last. He's saying you've built it on sand. And sure, like especially during this time and the people that he was talking to, it didn't rain a lot there, you know? It just didn't. And so for a while, it seems like your foundation is strong and nobody's going to know, but the rains are coming. And so he's saying, this isn't a threat. He goes, if you want your life to resemble somebody who built their house on a rock, listen and apply. If you want to experience the kind of purpose and contentment and fulfillment that resembles somebody that built their house on a rock, he's saying, hey, just listen and apply. But if you want to walk through life, if you want to build your life on a shaky foundation, dating the way everybody else dates, prioritizing the way everybody else prioritizes, putting your own desires above everybody else's, if you want to do that, he's saying, hey, that's your choice. You can if you want. But I'm just telling you, you're building the foundation of your life on sand. And so I think Jesus gives us this lens. And he's saying, I've taught you how I want you to live. Like, I've laid it all out there. And I told you what's at the end of both decisions. He's saying, I taught you all of this, and now I want you to apply it. Not because there's some contract that he's holding us to, right? Like, not that there's something that we need to fulfill on our end. Not because I want you to measure up to my expectations, or I'm going to say, hey, like, here's the bar, and if you don't reach it, bye, right? He's not saying that. He's saying, I want you to live this out, not because I'm trying to rip you off, but because I'm trying to set you free, and I want you to have a life that is full and fulfilling. He's saying, I want you to live this out because I want what's best for you. I want you to live this out because I want more for you. I want you to live this out because I love you. That's what he's saying. He's not trying to say, hey, you need to measure up. I'm holding you accountable to all these rules and expectations. He's saying, I love you and I want what's best for you. So listen and apply. And so what do you want the foundation of your life built on? Because y'all, like I said before, like, y'all are in a very special season right now. You really are. Y'all are in a season right now of your life where you can get it right the very first time. You can get it right the very first time. And I don't want you, because I also care about you so much, and I don't want you to get 10 years down the road, 20 years down the road, and you sit there and wonder, and you're sitting in destruction, you're sitting in ruin, you're sitting in regret, you're sitting in pain, and you're thinking, man, I wish I would have listened. Or you're sitting there like, man, what would my life have looked like? How much easier would things have been? How much more purpose would I have had? How much more would I have accomplished for the kingdom if that one night, February 19th, 2025, at 8:59, and you think back to this moment right now, and you're like, man, what if I could go back and just start then? Where would I have been now? And so get it right the first time. Y'all, Jesus is the one that has the words of life. He is the one that offers you life. He's the one that has literally laid it out and shown you how to have the fullest life. And so the question we have to ask now is, are we going to follow? Like, he made it really clear, you know? And now it's just up to us, because we have all heard it said. But now we get to decide what we're going to do with what Jesus said. Let me pray.